All right, so let's get some analysis on this momentous decision, and we speak now to political analyst Dr. Levy Ndou. Dr. Ndou, thank you very much for your time. For the first time in South Africa's democratic history, a head of a Chapter 9 institution is fired from her post by Parliament, and it is through a majority vote. Can I begin with this question? Is it possible for a person with that kind of record to ever find work in any government institution?
Good morning, Koli. Good morning to the viewers at home. Indeed, this is for the first time that a person who is heading a Chapter 9 institution is being removed from office. It is also through a very comprehensive process, as you indicated, which is legal, which is a parliamentary process, and of course it has got serious implications. When you are removed in a manner in which Advocate Mkhwebane was removed, you actually look at the reasons. The first is misconduct and incompetence. It therefore means that Parliament had appointed someone who cannot meet the standards required by this person to be able to fulfill the obligations of the office. But when such processes have to go through, it therefore has serious implications on the individual, in the sense that wherever this person goes, he or she carries that name that says that this one has got misconduct in his or her name, and this person is incompetent. And obviously, people will be very, very careful to take a decision to appoint such a person. So, in my view, it has got very serious implications on the future of the person that is removed in this manner.
More than two-thirds majority in Parliament. More than two-thirds. I'm placing emphasis here, Mr. Ndou, because this is what parliamentarians came to yesterday. This was more than the number of votes required. That more than two-thirds. It absolutely sealed the fate of Advocate Mkhwebane. Your assessment about what parliamentarians were trying to drive home here. What is the message about the assessment of her work?
Well, I think, firstly, even though not all members of parliament were the participants in the 194 committee, they did receive the report. But at the same time, those who might have had time would have been able to follow the proceedings of the committee via different channels of communication. But if you look at the numbers there, it will therefore mean that based on the report presented before Parliament, and which is also being echoed by the chairperson of the committee, Richard Janti, it therefore means that members of Parliament were all convinced, or the majority was convinced, that indeed Advocate Mkhwebane is not the right person to occupy that office. It therefore also emphasizes what the Constitution talks about, that if you have got a two-thirds in terms of decision making, that decision has to be implemented. On many occasions, it will be difficult for MPs in South Africa to agree in a manner that they actually agreed on this matter. And one would say that it might be because the committee might have done comprehensive work, submitted all the work that was supposed to be submitted, which made everybody or the majority of those that are in Parliament to be convinced that indeed the public protector has to be removed.
Those who defended her, Dr. Ndou, say that they may go to court for a judicial review on the grounds that this was an illegal adoption of the Section 194 committee report. Question to you, are there credible grounds for going to court? And add to that, if indeed they do decide to go to court, will it be money well spent?
Well, Toli, in South Africa, there is a principle that if you feel aggrieved by any processes, you actually have to rely to the courts for adjudication. But at the same time, you have got a committee that was established by Parliament, in which members of Parliament participated because they were given that responsibility to do so. At the same time, you have got the majority of members of Parliament who went yesterday to Parliament to participate in the discussion and indeed also voted. So we're talking about people that have been part of the processes from the beginning up to the end. And it will require people in the legal profession to articulate this better. But from the simple political eye, these people have been part and parcel of the processes, and in Parliament, and indeed in a democratic setup, you debate, and what comes at the end of the day is that you actually have to vote, and that is exactly what happened. At the same time, Richard Danke says that they ensured that all the holes are actually closed. They ensured that they become as patient as possible because they did not want a situation where some people will be able to identify shortcomings in the work that the committee has actually done. But equally, those that feel aggrieved, they can still take the matter to courts, and indeed the courts will have to make a final decision on the matter.
Dr. Ndou, I'd like to hone in now on the behavior of ANC parliamentarians. And there's a reason, there's a context to this, and that is that recent history has given us clear evidence of a divided ANC caucus on a number of decisions that have had to be taken in that parliament. But yesterday was very different, and for the reason that all of them, except for one cabinet member who chose to absent herself, we'll talk about her in a moment. But the question I want to ask about the ANC's behavior yesterday, what is it that we can read from that behavior?
Well, according to the weekend reports, the Secretary General of the ANC has indicated that those who might not make it to Parliament, the only reason could be death. But at the same time, I think there is now a clear understanding on the part of ANC members that the seats that they have in Parliament, equally to other political parties, do not belong to them, they actually belong to the party. At the same time, political parties would have party caucuses where decisions are taken, thoroughly being discussed, which will require every member of the party to actually follow the line. So what you see in the different political parties in South Africa is that they actually toe the party line, which is exactly what is expected from members of Parliament.
Yeah.
There has been a talk in the past, Toli, where MPs will say, or other political parties will say, we want MPs to go and vote according to their conscience. And I think that is very correct to say such statements. But in reality, when you are sent to Parliament by a political party, you actually toe the political party line. And those are the basics that political parties would teach their members when they send them to Parliament, even once they join political parties. Because when you join a political party, there are many other rights that you surrender to the political party because you have actually voluntarily decided to join that political party.
Well, you've led me perfectly to my next question, which is going to be preceded by this soundbite from the ANC chief whip in Parliament, and this has to do with Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who was a no-show in Parliament. Let's just take a listen quickly.
Her absence today was a shock to me. She has no apology. She has no permission to be absent. I can account about others. I know their whereabouts. I don't know the whereabouts of Mama Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. And as I usually do, I'm packaging the report to the Secretary General's office. It's high time that they act once and for all. It's enough now.
Those last words, enough now, and she's talking from recent history of a particular behavior that they have observed. Do you think that Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma followed her conscience here, and that perhaps her presence in Parliament would not have allowed her conscience to vote yes to Mkhwebane's removal? And what consequences may come now?
Kole, I want to repeat this one. When you are a member of a political party, conscience does not work in the simplest terms. When you are a member of a political party, you toe the party line. And that is expected from all political parties, and that is what members of political parties do. That's why I want to repeat. You have party caucuses where decisions are discussed and taken. I sense anger and disappointment on the part of the chief whip of the ANC, because indeed this is not happening for the first time. My sense is that there could be a very good reason why Minister Nkosazana Zuma could not make it to Parliament. She might be having very good reasons to present to a party, the ANC. But indeed, if there are no good reasons or acceptable reasons that she can present to a party, my expectation will be that the party has to act on members who actually defy party decisions, because therefore you are as good as not having members of your party in Parliament if the decisions that you take are going to be defied by members of your own party. I also want to indicate that if it was in other political parties, there wouldn't be any report to be submitted anywhere. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma should have considered herself dismissed from the party.
Dismissed from the party? Are you absolutely certain about that, Dr. Ndou, given that we're going into an election? This is a person who has exhibited this behavior even towards the very person that she calls her leader in government right now, yet she was still included even after the conference in December 2022. Where I'm going with it is that, is the party prepared to lose such a figure who comes from a particular base in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of an election?
If it was in other political parties, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, without good reasons, she would have been expelled from the ANC. I say so because other parties will not even have to think twice or have any form of a discussion, because any form of misbehavior in other parties is not acceptable. Unfortunately, you have a challenge in the ANC of ill discipline and which the party is unable to deal with. At the same time, let's wait for the report that might be taken to the Secretary General's office and then get the reasons why Nkosazana Zuma could not make it to Parliament. They could be acceptable or they could not be acceptable. But if the reasons are not good enough, my expectation is that the ANC, if it wants to have disciplined members in the party, they actually have to act against those who defy party decisions.
Wow. Dr. Levy Ndou, let me thank you very much for your time and analysis of the situation. Might she be used to set an example? I think that's what Dr. Ndou is trying to get at here.